Okay, so what we have is Jorge is earning $12 at his job, $12 per hour, but he is going to be getting a 6% raise, and we have different ways we can solve for this. The one way we could do it is we could just figure out, well, what's 6% of 12? So we can do it this way. We know that 6%, hopefully we realize that's the same as 0.06. Remember, it's just a percent is saying how many hundredths we're talking about. So 6 hundredths is 0.06. And I can multiply that times 12. So $12 per hour. And when I do that, I will get 0.72. Now, this is not the answer, but this is telling us what his raise amount per hour is going to be, which means when we add that to the original amount, so plus the 12 he was making before, that gives him $12.72. Now, this is the answer, okay? And so we've found that. There are other ways we can do this. If you think back to your exponential growth that you learned in algebra last year, and I don't think that you guys would necessarily remember this, but I do want to remind you that you had a formula that looked something like this. It was, and maybe you use different variables, but P times 1 plus R raised to the T power or something like that. And that was your growth. Now, basically, this is essentially the same kind of question. And I just want to, it's worth it just to bring up this concept again, because we're saying the rate of growth is this 6% right here. So I have 1 plus 0.06, and the P is the principal. If you remember that from when you learned this, the principal is basically, what did we start with? Well, he started with earning $12 per hour. Now, T, this would be, if you were talking about how much did he earn over the course of 5 years of 6% growth, then you could say, oh, 5 years. But really, this is just a one-time raise, and the next time it might not be the same. So let's just say he earned 6% just this one time. So there's just a different way of thinking about it. So it's going to be 12 times this to the first power. Doesn't really change anything here, but it's just 1.06. So the only difference between this calculation here and this one is that the 1 added in says, okay, he's going to keep the 12 that he's making, but he's going to add 6% to it. So when you multiply this out, you get 12.72. And then just the last way of looking at this, I'm not saying there's a best way, but just one other way you could look at this is in terms of proportions. If he is going to earn 6% more, so he's currently earning 12, and he's going to earn some new amount. So 12 over this equals, well, this represents 100% of what he's currently making. And so if he's going to earn 106% now, and you could write that in this term, you could put it as 1.00, 1.06. That doesn't change your answer. So if you put this in proportions, you can just do your cross products right here. And when you do that, you will get your answer. Okay. So whichever way makes the most sense. All right, that works. I just got a message that works for me. Okay. Whichever way you were able to think through it, this is your answer. And there we go. So we're just going to get some practice. We're not going to learn anything new today, but we are going to be practicing with stuff that we already did on Friday. So we talked about that before. So mid-segment theorem practice. That's the main thing for the day. The first thing I wanted to point out is that grades are actually due on Friday, not Wednesday. I don't know how I got my information mixed up, but that's my fault. Which means those of you who have been working on your stuff over the weekend, you're good to go. And if you are already on track to take your test today, any test retakes today or tomorrow, then, you know, if you feel good and confident about it, just keep up with that. But if you need a few more days, you have now until Thursday at midnight, because I need to do grades on Friday. So Thursday at midnight to do any test retakes and missing homework assignments. So if you need to look through that, make yourself a note right now to look through all your grades, figure out what tests you need to retake to bring your grade up. Okay, any missing homework assignments, all that fun stuff. All right, so we're just going to be practicing with some mid-segment today. These are actually problems from your homework, but before we do that, I wanted to show you something real quick. This is your Canvas page, and what we've got is the Unit 4 reference sheet. I'm not sure if I showed this on Friday or not. I don't think I did. So let me go ahead and show this to you. And again, this is available to you at all times on the test, any other time in between, like while you're practicing. So we've got the triangle mid-segment theorem, and notice that it shows that these two lines are parallel. These angles are congruent because they're corresponding angles. And this right here is the key thing, that this mid-segment, which is segment DE, and notice that it's shown here as DE, this is going to be half the length of the parallel side, BC. So notice DE is equal to half of BC. Or maybe the other way to think about it, maybe even a better way of thinking about it, is that BC, the parallel side, is twice as long as the mid-segment. The reason this one's a little better is so you're not having to deal with fractions. So maybe it's a good idea to always think about the fact that this right here is always twice as long as this mid-segment. And if you scroll down, there's an example given right here. So if you see 2x minus 5 and 3x plus 7, notice it gives you the two segments, the two expressions put into this equation. So it says that the mid-segment right here, 2x minus 5, is equal to half of 3x plus 7. And it's set up that way. Of course, it's also set up the other way, where 2 times the mid-segment, 2x minus 5, is equal to the parallel side. And that you can see is a little bit easier to work with. In fact, all we did was just multiply both sides by 2 in order to get that. And now you can go through, use your distributive property, solve for your missing value, x equals 17 here. So that is a reference, and I highly encourage you guys to have this available just to be able to look at this type of problem and be able to work your way through it. Okay, so let's now look back at this again. And let's go through this problem. So if I've got my general formula here that says 2 times the mid segment is equal to the parallel side, all right, so my writing doesn't look very good, but 2 times the mid segment equals the parallel side. So obviously here's the mid segment, and this is equal to 2 times that. So if I put a midpoint right here, this segment right here would be equal to this one. So that is equal to that. But okay, I don't know if that's helpful or not to see it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and take this 2x plus 3, and that's my mid-segment. So 2 times 2x plus 3. And this is from your Friday homework. So if you've already done this, you can just kind of double check. The parallel side is 34, so that goes right here. So if I go ahead and do this process, I can multiply this out. I'm going to go ahead and use a distributive property because it's good to get some practice with that. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 3 is 6, and that equals 34. So at this point, we've already done the hardest part. I'd say that this line right here is the hardest part of this, and the rest of it is just solving an equation. So I'm going to go through and finish solving that. So it's going to be subtract 6 from both sides, and 4x equals 28. Divide by 4 on both sides, and 28 divided by 4 is 7. So they're only asking for the value of x for this problem. Again, this is your Friday homework. So if you have already done that and you can think back to it, maybe you got 7 for your answer and you can just confirm that, yes, you did it right. And that's really good. I can't emphasize this enough that if you're doing the practice along the way, this is going to be, it's going to make your life a lot easier if you are doing the practice along the way and not trying to get caught up right before the tests. And hopefully you guys have figured that out. Now, I got a question in the chat that said, couldn't we just use 0.5 instead of 1/2? Absolutely. So in fact, if we want to see this the second way, I could set the mid segment is equal to 0.5 times the parallel side. I'll just put para for parallel on the side. So if I did it that way, I would get 2x plus 3 equals 0.5 times 34. And you might or might not find it just as easy this way. But I will say when this is an expression, it's not necessarily as easy on the right side. But 0.5 times 34 is just 17. So 2x plus 3 equals 17. Subtract 3. And we get 2x equals 14. Divide by 2. And x equals 7. So it doesn't matter which way we want to go about solving it. We'll get the same answer either way. I do think working with the 2 times the midsegment is always easier for almost every student, but you get to decide for yourself how you like that. So I'm just going to go through a few problems today to show you how to work with it when you've got expressions. And then if you want to stick around to make sure you've got the hang of it, we can go through as many problems as you'd like, because you'll see we're going to be doing this on Delta Math today. So when the problem is given like so, I can set it up as 2 times the midsegment. I should probably come up with an abbreviation for that to make my life a little easier, equals the parallel side. So anyways, 2 times, and the midsegment in this case is this one right here. So 2 times 2x plus 1 equals the parallel side. So it's just going to be 5x minus 4. And you can see if I had this as an expression on the right side, multiplying by 1/2 or by 0.5 isn't going to be very fun. So that's why it's always easier just to double something like I'm doing over here rather than divide it into 2. So that's why I say it's maybe best just to stick with this idea for most people. All right, so if I do my distributive property again, it's going to be 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 1 is 2. And that equals 5x minus 4. So I want to move my numbers to one side and my variables to the other. So I'm going to add 4 here. If I have a negative, I like to add the negative so that I get to work with just positive numbers. So 4x plus 6 equals 5x. Now I need to move my variables over. So I'm going to subtract 4x here. And those cancel. So 6 equals x. All right, now there is a way of checking your work. You already know that the midsegment should be half the length of the parallel side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug 6 into both of these. I'm going to have 2 times 6 plus 1, and then 5 times 6 minus 4. There we go. So that's, I'll just start up here. 2 times 6 is 12 plus 1 is 13. So I've got 13 for the midsegment. Now if I do this on the bottom, 5 times 6 is 30 minus 4. 30 minus 4 is 26. So I just need to ask myself, is 13 half of 26? Yes, it is. So we did this right. There is a way of checking your work. Okay. So that is what we've got with these types of problems, and you can finish off your homework this way. And there's actually only one that I didn't do, so there's one more for you guys to try to see if you can get it. So your homework tonight is going to be on Delta Math. And so I want to show you what this midsegment looks like when you're on Delta Math, because we have 2 types of problems. One of them is going to be a new type of problem, but really it's not that bad. And at least I hope you agree it's not that bad. And let me go ahead and pull this up real quick. So you will have problems that look like this. And maybe the first thing that you can do is recognize that you're going to have the same prompt each time. These first couple of this first sentence makes it look a little more complicated, but it gives you this diagram. So you have E, F, G, this triangle. You've got your H and J are both midpoints, which means we've created our classic mid-segment cutting right through the middle, HJ. Now you'll notice that in the question part of this, it's asking for angle measures, and we haven't had that yet. But here's where I want to remind you that this angle right here is congruent to this one because those are corresponding angles. This one right here corresponds to that one. So those are also congruent. So we can solve for this. And what I highly encourage you guys to do each problem is to draw this diagram and to mark on the diagram where what specific segments or angles you're being asked to solve for. So in this case, it asks if the measure of angle HJF. So let me see, HJF is this one right here. So that's this. If that is 10x plus 36, I'm going to write that in, 10x plus 36. And EGJ, so EGJ right there, is 6x plus 44, then what is the measure of HJF? Well, okay, this is something we can do. This is not so difficult. We just talked about the fact that these are corresponding angles, so they have to be equal. So this makes our problem a little bit easier. If we're talking about the angles are equal. So the measure of angle HJF has to equal the measure of angle EGJ. So I know that this is 10x plus 36, and this is 6x plus 44. So now I've got that equation set up. I can just solve for x. All right. So I will subtract 36 from both sides. I like to subtract the smaller number if they're both positive. That way I don't end up with negatives. So I get 10x equals 6x plus 8. And this is where, you might be using your calculator as you go through this. 44 minus 36, if you plug that in, you should get 8. Now I'm going to move my 6x over. I'm going to subtract that from both sides. So I get all my variables on the left, and that is going to be 4x equals 8. Luckily, we should all be able to do this pretty quickly. If I divide both sides by 4, x equals 2. And here's where we need to be careful, because with the last two problems we did on the worksheet, that's our answer. That's what they asked for. But this is not our final answer. Notice up here, the question is, what is the measure of angle HJF? So what do we need to do? We need to plug this 2 back into that angle right there. So it's going to be 10 times 2 plus 36. All right, so 10 times 2 is 20 plus 36. 20 plus 36 is 56. So we have to do one extra step here. And here's the good thing about this. You already know this about delta math. So I'm going to put 56, submit my answer, make sure that's right. It is right. Here's the good thing about delta math. If you look at this problem and you have no idea what to do, just put in a wrong answer, put in 1 and say, yes, submit this. And they're going to say, no, you didn't get it right. But that's okay. Because whether you get it right or wrong, it's going to walk you through every single step that we just did. And notice that they showed the work just like we did. Here's the entire part where you set the angles equal to each other, and then you go through and solve for x. Now that's the value of x, but here it also shows they plug this back in to the original equation for HJF, and you can solve for your 56. So I mean, if you want to stick around after class, we can go through a lot more of these. But if you are going through this evening and then you forgot how to do it, just plug in a wrong answer and then you can see the steps. All right, so make sure that you are actually practicing with this. And here I want to re-emphasize, you've got to practice with the stuff as we go through. You can't expect to just take a few days off and then learn it all at once. That doesn't work for people usually. All right, so I'm going to pull up another type of problem. And in fact, here it is. Notice in this case, it doesn't give us any angles. The last one, we had angle HJF and EGJ. Here it gives us some segment lengths. So this is, again, where I'd encourage you to draw this diagram right here on your paper. And you might get sick of drawing it, but it only takes a few seconds. But draw that diagram and actually mark the distances that are given. HJ is 35 minus 2x. EG is 9x minus 47. Okay, all right. Sorry, I just got a message. I was responding to that. So anyways, as we're getting this set up, now we need to remember our mid-segment theorem that says that this mid-segment right here is half as long as the parallel side. So I can set it up this way. 2 times the mid-segment is equal to the parallel side. And notice I've written this now like 3 times. And I just want you guys to understand that this is the calculation that you need to do. It's not that difficult. I don't want to make it sound easy. What I mean is, if you know this, it's just 2 times the mid-segment, okay? So I'm going to do 2 times 35 minus 2x equals 9x minus 47. And just real quick, as I was talking about this, you might find it easy, you might not, but I think once you practice with this a couple of times, it will become second nature. And you'll find it's not that difficult with a little bit of practice. So now I can go through, I've got this set up, I can now solve. I need to do my distributive property. With the angles, I didn't ever have to double anything because the angles are just equal. But here, the mid-segment, we have to double it to make it equal to the parallel side. So I get 2 times 35 is 70. And 2 times negative 2, so that's going to be minus 4x equals 9x minus 47. Okay, now we've got a pretty straightforward problem, and we can move our variable. Let's start by moving our variables over. I'm going to add 4x to both sides. So that cancels out. I get 70 equals 13x minus 47. And these numbers don't look very pretty, but we'll make it work. So I'm going to add 47 to both sides. And I get, didn't want that. I'm just going to bring this up now. So the 47s cancel out, but I get 70 plus 47 is 117, which equals 13x. And now I want to get x by itself, so I'm going to divide by 13. And you probably won't be doing that in your head, but this is where you have your calculator. 117 divided by 13, you can find your answer. And you should get 9. Okay, I'm going to pause right there. Are there any questions on this so far? Okay, and don't forget, you have an example available to you the entire time with that reference sheet that I created for you. So use that reference sheet to help you if you get stuck along the way. So now this is not my final answer. They're actually asking me to find the measure of EG. So I need to, if I just plug 9 in right here for my answer, it's going to come back and say I didn't do it right, obviously. So now let's figure out EG is this length right here, which means I want to take this 9 and I want to plug it in to that equation. So 9 times 9 minus 47. 9 times 9 is 81. So if I subtract, that's going to be 34. I believe 34. Am I doing my math right? That looks right. Okay. So 34, I'm going to plug that in for my answer. So here it goes. Where is it? There it is. And just like I've been saying, if you get it wrong, we got it right here. That's good. If you get it wrong, it'll give you the red X, but everything down here is going to be the same. It's going to walk through every step of the way. We need to double the midsegment to make it equal to the parallel side. And then you can walk through all this, and you can see down here, when you get your X value, you plug it back into your original equation and for EG, and you can get your answer. Okay. At this point, I've walked through a number of problems. If you feel like you've got the hang of it, you feel like you can jump right into Delta Math and get some practice with this, feel free to do so. And you are free to go. If you have any questions, I want you to stick around so you can get help. So for everyone, have a wonderful day, and yeah, stick around with any help you need.